Hey guys, my name is David Watkins, and I am going to be teaching from Mark chapter 10, verses 42 through 45. I'm going to be reading from the ESV version, so if you have your Bible, if you open up and join me. It says, "And Jesus called them to him and said to them, 'You know that those who are considered rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. But it shall not be so among you. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many.'" The theme of this passage is that in the kingdom of heaven, the highest place of honor is reserved for the humblest people. And we can see that by the way Mark strings these stories together here. They are on their way. The disciples are following Jesus to Jerusalem, and Jesus is telling them that he's going to Jerusalem. He's going to be killed. He's going to be mocked. He's going to be spit on, and eventually, they will kill him. And after 3 days, he will rise. That's in verse 34. So we're going to kind of go through 35 through 41 real quick, which is preceding the verses 42 through 45, to kind of get a grasp of what the storyline is. And it says that James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came up to him, Jesus, and said to him, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you." And he said to them, "What do you want me to do for you?" And they said to him, "Grant us to sit one at your right hand and one at your left in your glory." So John and James are thinking that Jesus is about to usher in the kingdom of heaven and establish it on earth. They're asking for prominent positions. I mean, there's nothing higher in a throne room than the throne of the king, and then the seatings to the left and to the right of the throne. And so John and James were asking to be Jesus' right-hand guys. There's other disciples following too, but they're saying, "Hey, Jesus, we want those seats. So you got us, right? You're going to do this for us." And Jesus, I think it's interesting though that they're asking him to do something for them, and Jesus he says to them, "What do you want me to do for you?" When he's the king, they know that Jesus is something special. They've been seeing these miracles and these works, and they've been hearing his teachings, and so they know there's something to this guy, and we want to be there. But he's the king, and they're asking the king to do something for them, and the king is offering himself to do it, which I find that to be very interesting, because as the king, you would expect these guys to be asking him, Jesus, "What can we do for you?" But instead they were saying, "Hey king, serve us," because that's how fallen man's nature is that we want things to serve us. And Jesus, being God in the flesh, is setting a principle that even God, who is greater than all of us, is a servant. He's here to serve. "What can I do for you, James and John?" And then he says, he asks them if they can drink the same cup that he's going to drink and be baptized like he's going to be baptized. And they say, "We are able." And Jesus says that you will drink the cup and be baptized as I have. And when he says drink the cup, he's talking about his suffering, the way he's going to die. Both James and John will suffer for Jesus' namesake, and they don't understand that yet. But that's what Jesus is telling them. You will actually, you're asking, and you don't know what you're asking for, but you will suffer for me. And then he also says that it's not my place to give there. In verse 40, it says, "But to sit at my right hand or at my left is not mine to grant." Jesus did not come to grant this stuff. He came for one purpose: to serve the will of God, his Father in heaven. In John chapter 6:38, Jesus says, "For I have come down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me." So these men are asking for God's will to be done for them. And Jesus said, "That's not why I'm here. I'm not here to grant you these places. I'm here to do the will of God, and that is that I'm here to die and reconcile human beings and fallen human flesh to God Almighty and to myself, basically. And then the other 10 heard it, and they got mad and displeased at James and John because they weren't thinking, oh, you guys are so lost. No, they were wanting the same thing. The other disciples were like, dang it, we want those left and right hand positions next to Jesus. So dang it, James and John, why are you asking? And then we get to our passage, and Jesus says to them that you know that the Gentiles, the non-Jewish people, the ones who aren't God's elect, they lord it over you. They are sitting in power, and they use their positions for domination and for humiliation and to be served. They hold other people's head because they can, and God is not that way. Jesus says that it will not be so among you, because in the kingdom of heaven, that's not how it works. God served us, and in return, we serve God. And then he moves on and says, but whoever would be great among you must be your servant. That word is diakonos, and it's the same word that we get our English word deacon from, and a deacon is someone who serves the church as a servant. It's not someone who is a place of power, or it doesn't give you an air that I'm better than other people at this church because I'm the deacon. No, the deacons are servants there. They're supposed to serve the church because Jesus served us. And then he also makes a greater statement right after that. He says, whoever will be first among you must be slave of all. So if you want to be great, be a servant. But if you want to be first, if you want to be the top dog, if you want to be the man, you must become a slave of all. That word is doulos. And doulos is used by Paul, by James, John, Simon Peter, Jude, and Timothy to describe their state of being and their relationship to Jesus. And it literally is translated slave. We are slaves of Jesus Christ. And Kenneth West, a Greek scholar, defines that word doulos as this: the word doulos, the most abject, servile term used by the Greeks to denote a slave, is one who is bound to his master in cords so strong that only death could break them. One who served his master to the disregard of his own interests. One whose will was swallowed up in the will of his master. And we see that in the person and work of Jesus Christ. He served God's will, his Father's will, so perfectly that he died. And he was not able to get out of that until he died. And that's how we're supposed to be looked at. That's how we're supposed to look at our relationship with Jesus, that until death do us part and we go and be with him, we are servants of him. Our will is swallowed up by his will. We're to be out there preaching the word and telling about his goodness and his mercy and his kindness. Because for even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and give his life a ransom for many. Jesus, God incarnate, came down in Philippians chapter 2. It says that he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, and that he made himself nothing, taking the form of a servant. So God Almighty came down, and he took the form of nothing. He became so low. The Creator, all high, holy one, who is the only non-contingent being in this universe, outside of this universe, because even the universe depends upon him, came and served us here on earth. And we, in response to that goodness and kindness of his death and resurrection, we are called to serve as well. And then the last portion of this segment of stories, Mark brings and tells about Jesus healing Bartimaeus. And Bartimaeus was a blind beggar. We see that in verse 46. Bartimaeus, a blind beggar, was sitting by the roadside, and he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth and started crying out to Jesus to come to have mercy on him. And people are trying to quiet him down because a great crowd was following Jesus, and they're trying to hush him because he's a blind beggar. He's the lowest of the low in society. And Jesus says, bring him here. Come on. He calls him. And Bartimaeus comes over, and Jesus, being so humble, says, what do you want me to do for you? He's asking the lowest person in society, a blind beggar who sits on the roadside, and the only way he can survive is by begging, by just pleading with people for just the littlest of little to get by. And Jesus says, hey, what can I do for you? He becomes even lower than the lowest. There's nothing more humbling or probably even more humiliating for God to do that. But he loves us so that he is willing to humble himself. And we should love him so that we would humble ourselves. We don't strive for the first place in the kingdom of heaven. We strive because he first loved us. And Jesus heals him and sends him on his way. And that's the end of that segment of stories. And the overall overarching theme is that in the kingdom of heaven, the highest place of honor is reserved for the humblest people. And Jesus is telling us, hey, I served, and I was a slave to God my Father, and you shall serve me what I've done, and you shall be my slave. But not only a slave, but a friend. And that should be encouraging, and we should all give ourselves. And how can we make this really apply this to our own lives? A few notes that I have on that is we could join the cleaning staff at our local church. Go there on a day off and volunteer to scrub the bathroom floors, to scrub the toilets, to clean whatever needs to be cleaned around the church, because we should be serving people, and that's the house of God, and we should be thankful for our salvation. So we go and serve there. We could also stop and just chat with a homeless person, of someone who may be in need. Give to someone who may be of lower status than you, and don't think that anything is beneath you. There is nothing beneath you. Jesus, God Almighty incarnate, came and served us, and not only served us, but he served the outcast of society. And so if nothing was below God, nothing should be below us. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed this teaching, and God bless.